Chester Arthur was the son of a Baptist preacher. Arthur was not corrupt personally, but he was an absolute believer in the spoils system. When he was in charge of the Customs House in New York, he staffed it in grandiose style. There were more employees than were possibly needed. However, that left them plenty of times to do party politics rather than fulfill their role as government employees and actually doing government work. He did, however, expect an honest running of the Customs House, even if they were not doing real jobs. He just wanted enough employees to be able to help out his party at government expense. As president, however, he tried to curb these practices. Chester Alan Arthur was born in Fairfield, Vermont, on October 5th, 1829. After several moves, they would wind up in Schenectady, New York. He had a traditional education and attended Union College in Schenectady. During winter breaks, he taught in Schaghticoke, New York. He graduated in 1848 and taught school for a while he was studying law. He eventually moved to New York City to read law and was admitted to the bar in 1854. While practicing law, he met Ellen Hernandez in 1856. They eventually married in 1859 in the Calvary Episcopal Church in Manhattan. He spent time building his law practice and delving into Republican politics. When the Civil War broke out, Chester was commissioned as a brigadier general assigned to the Quartermaster's Department, basically the supply network for the military. At the governor's request, he turned down offers to command forces. He returned to his law practice in 1863. Arthur became chairman of the New York City Executive Committee in 1868. He was appointed collector of the Port of New York, a position that controlled thousands of jobs. President Hayes, however, was trying to make government jobs come under the Civil Service Code. People who actually knew something about the position they were taking ought to get the job over a political hack who doesn't know anything about the position. Having a bridge inspector hired because he is in your party and has never built or designed so much as a doghouse is probably not the best of ideas. On January 12, 1880, his wife died. Arthur was devastated and never married again. Rutherford Hayes had promised in 1876 that he would only serve one term as president and kept his word. Republicans were not sure who to pick in the election of 1880. It was the longest Republican nomination convention in history. There were two strong factions within the Republican Party. There were the stalwarts. They favored the old spoils system. Government jobs are for the victors, to be distributed by the victors. The other main group of the Republican Party were what was called the half-breeds, a nice derogatory term. Their opponents claimed that they were only half Republicans. The half-breeds felt people should be appointed by merit, not patronage. That was really the main issue of the campaign. The Republicans nominated Garfield, who never thought he was going to be nominated, and Chester Arthur then was nominated as a balancing act, even though Garfield was not a half-breed or a stalwart. They would face Major General Winfield Scott and his vice president nominee, William Hayden English, a former congressman from Indiana. The Greenback Party nominated James Weaver, a congressman from Ohio. His vice presidential running mate was Brasilia Chambers, a businessman and a lawyer from Texas. Again, there was not much difference in the issues in this campaign. They pretty much agreed on everything. In the end, James Garfield and Chester Arthur won the election. Garfield and Arthur received 214 electoral votes carried 18 states and received 48.32% of the popular vote. Winfield Scott Hancock received 155 electoral votes, won 18 states, and reached 48.21% of the popular votes. An extremely close popular vote election. The Greenback Party got 3% of the vote. The Greenback Party was just all about getting our currency off the gold standard, basically. Chester Arthur was not vice president for very long. Garfield was shot less than 4 months after taking office, and he died a couple months later. Chester Arthur then became president on September 19, 1881. Chester Arthur's presidency was sort of boring. There were no real issues, no passionate divides between the parties. There was also no huge foreign policy issues that we had to face. Arthur managed to get some civil service reform passed and signed the Pendleton Civil Service Reform Act, which attempted to have a system based on merit instead of patronage. It only applied to approximately 10% of the jobs, however. Arthur's heart was really not in it. He was always a believer in the spoils system. When it came to foreign policy, Arthur tried to get some new trade treaties passed. He tried to get some more trade in Latin America. Most of that failed. He did pass an immigration bill which excluded the mentally ill, intellectually disabled, and criminals from entering the country. The Chinese immigration also began to become a problem in the United States. Workers were starting to blame the Chinese, all the Chinese immigration, for lower wages that they were facing. Sort of like it is today, actually. The Chinese Exclusion Act restricted Chinese immigration for 10 years. Arthur did build the Navy back up. It had been neglected for many years. He didn't build it up to the levels he desired, but at least he made it somewhat respectable. He also signed the Edmunds Act, which made polygamy a federal crime and banned them from holding public office or voting. This was in response to the rising Mormonism out west, out in Utah. There was also acts of polygamy, which were also made illegal. He had been diagnosed with kidney disease. He initially tried to hide it, but when he started losing weight and you could tell he was aging rapidly, it came in the forefront. He struggled to keep pace even to do his job at that time. He made a half-hearted bid for the presidential nomination in 1884, but it wasn't really a serious attempt. His post-presidency was uneventful, much of it probably due to his health. On November 16, 1886, he ordered all his personal papers and official papers to be burnt. No one is quite sure why. He died a couple days later on November 18, 1886. Chester Arthur was not a wealthy man. He was never worth over, say, about $1 million. If you like this video, hit the like button and subscribe. Thanks for listening.